Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and particularly to have this time to speak to Rolf, the extremely talented individual who has been leading Oris for the last decade and directing their exceptional journey in watchmaking. Very excited to discover some of the insights and the stories that he's going to share with us today. Forgive me for taking notes as we talk, because knowing you, Rolf, you're going to be bringing out lots of interesting points that I want to follow up on, and I want to make sure I can keep track of it all. So, Rolf, how are you today, and how are you finding in Horgenta? It's my first time here, and I believe it's the first time for you as well.
Yeah, we should discuss. It's my first time also. I'm very happy to be here. It's always nice to be in Munich. It's nice to be here at In Horgenta, and I think FHH did a great job in putting up their corner. Really very well done. So, yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show, everyone, and excited to see so many faces. Now, some of you may already be familiar with Oris and what they do, but for those who may be at an earlier stage of discovery about the brand, Rolf, can you give us a brief introduction to the brand? Not too many details. We want to leave something for our discussion.
Yes, we've been making mechanical watches since 1904 out of Hülstein in the Waldenburg Valley, so in the Swiss-German part of Switzerland.
Beautiful, beautiful landscape.
Exactly. It's very nice, very calm.
Very Swiss.
Very Swiss, that's true. And we only make mechanical watches, and we are one of the very few independent brands still, and this really defines us. We are not only independent, we are fiercely independent.
Yes, that spirit.
Yeah.
So our talk has the broad but intriguing title of Success Story. And I think we can get things off to a solid start today by talking about what success means to you. Obviously, the word means several things to different people, for different brands, in different contexts. But we're here today to find out what success means to you in context of Oris and where it is today.
Well, what is success? Of course, it's success from a business point of view, but it's also developing yourself. At Oris, we are a group of people that really believe in the same things, have the same values, and driving these things forward with that group of people. That's really something that gives me a lot of energy, and this to me is success also, to spend your days with people you enjoy spending them, and being able to be true to your values, not having to bend as an independent company. You're just responsible to yourself, right? You don't need to follow rules that someone else makes. So it's really us trying to make the best mechanical watches we can and developing the brands in the best possible direction we're able to.
Exactly. I'm going to pick you up on that because you've mentioned that twice now, and it seems to be a really important point of pride for you guys, that independent spirit. So to you, does that also form an essential part of what success means to be for Oris, that you rest independent, you stay independent, you are self-sufficient, you make your own decisions? Is that really a big part of what creates a brand success for you in your eyes?
Yes, I think that's very important, and being able to be true to your values and doing something you don't have to bend while you do it, I think that's success in life in general, right? The business is one part of who you are, of what you do. Of course, it takes a lot of your time, but at the end, you're a human being trying to go your journey. And then if you're able to do it with a brand like Oris and to develop things in the direction that you think makes sense, that's a privilege.
We had a previous discussion about this previously, about the term independent brand and what it really means, because that's a really, really diverse conversation. We're not going to go into all the complexities at this moment, but as I was saying before, in terms of corporate structure, independent is one of those words that can mean everything and nothing at the same time. If you really think about it, Rolex is an independent brand. Patek Philippe is an independent brand. So, but at the same time, they're very, very different. You wouldn't necessarily compare the structures or the kind of reach or the types of, corporation in terms of how they relate to their audience and so on and so forth, their position in the market. Independent can mean many things. So what does that actually what actually resonates for you within that term, independent, that makes you say, I'm proud that Oris is an independent brand?
Well, independence means many things. It means that you don't that you are responsible. You have to take responsibility because there's no group or no corporate structure that will have your back if things go the wrong direction. It's just you. Then it also means that.
Does it mean you have to be more careful? Does that mean you have to take?
No, you just have to take this responsibility, and you always have to be careful, of course, but you also have to be daring, and you have to go out there and make a difference and express yourself, especially as a mid-sized brand like we are. We need to make some noise so people see that we are there and they recognize what we do.
You spoke about making a difference. Now, you've been with Oris for almost 2 decades now and CEO for about half that time. So what do you think is the biggest difference between the brand before you took the CEO position and Oris in 2025?
Well, at Oris, we have.
It's not a trick question, Rolf.
It's a very interesting question, and at Oris we do serve the brands. There are not people who come there and now they do it their way and try to make a difference for 3 to 5 years, and then they leave for their next adventure. We serve the brands. Ulrich Herzog, our chairman, has been with the company since 1978. Dr. Portman, our honorary chairman, has been with the company since 1956. His father was the sales director of Oris, who started in 1926. I started in 2006. So you serve the brands, you try to develop it in the spirit that the people before you have created. And then when you ask me what is the biggest difference that I have made, on the one side, I want to be humble and say I was just lucky to be able to take what all these people did before me. But I think what we did do was giving a spirit of relaxedness, of easiness, a bit of quirk, a bit of thinking out of the box with what we have been doing the last few years, and this spirit of making people smile.
Of the brand, really.
Yeah, our purpose as a company is to make people smile, and I think this is what we really have shown that we are able to do that over the last few years.
Well, I don't want you to be too modest here in this area, because after all, the title of the talk is Success Story, and we're here to talk about, concrete aspects of that. But I want to say that your leadership has strongly developed certain aspects of Oris that people now really associate with the brand, the push for sustainability in your products, the brand's connection with its community that you said, making people smile and really building that, that rapport. Before we go into the steps that you consciously took to grow the brand in these areas, can you tell us why you prioritized these objectives and why you thought they were essential for the identity of Oris?
Well, when you take the topic of sustainability means taking responsibility. And we just talked about that. That is one of our key things, that we have that responsibility as an independent brand. And also in this feudalist world that our industry is, the industry of mechanical watches, we see ourselves as the citoyen, the citizen, the product of enlightenment, the person that takes responsibility. And when this is your position and when this is your attitude, then it's clear that you also look after the environment. And it's very interesting in our industry that often the spirit is we party till the bitter end, right? And then suddenly you want to save a turtle or a fish on some remote island. It doesn't make sense. We as a brand, we can credibly do that because this is our DNA.
In a way, the way that you described it, like being like sort of sustainability oriented, it's quite linked to how you've started to put a stronger focus on your community and your audience, because they are both linked. That focus on being a collective or being a group and really thinking about what you can achieve together, rather than a more perhaps individualistic or more internally focused kind of approach. Would you be able to tell us a bit more about what steps you actually consciously took within the brand to put these aspects of the brand, put these aspects of Oris to the forefront and really make it like, something that people see as representing Oris in terms of values.
Yeah. That aspect of community that you say, that was always very important for us, and that comes from us always having been a brand for people who know watches. People who like watches, often they start their collection with an Oris. I just talked to someone before who said, 40 years ago, my first serious mechanical watch was an Oris. Then you move on, you may buy another Oris. So this watch community always was very close to us. And then when social media came, suddenly we got a leverage that we could never have purchased with our means, because these people at Oris had been doing a great job for the past decades. And being on that eye-to-eye level is very important to us, because that's who we are. The Citoyen comes back there, right? This is how we believe that watchmaking should be, making people smile. That's exactly that. The opposite of that is what often happens in our industry, that is creating envy. And envy is such a shallow feeling, right? It lasts for a few seconds.
Yeah.
And then
you move on to something
you're left
else.
there,
Yeah.
you move on. But creating joy and sharing the joy about the object, that is what life is about. And that is what you're here for.
I love that. I don't think I've ever shared with you this story, but actually the first watch that I ever bought for someone else was an Oris for my dad.
Oh, fantastic.
So in a way, I'm a big fan. I'm a part of your community as well. Was there a point at which you talked about social media and how it really allowed you to kind of make those connections and have that big overview? Was there a moment that made you realize that, hey, you know what? This is our audience. This is our people. I want to, start really building that relationship in a conscious way, in a strong way, in a way that makes them feel seen and part of what we do.
Yeah, I remember very well when I went to the first Red Bar meeting in New York, in a basement.
Yeah. Sorry, just to give some context, the Red Bar community is an amazing group of watch collectors, watch enthusiasts with chapters all over the world. It's really a global community. They meet in different cities and they share their enthusiasm in a really genuine way. And,
Yes.
they meet regularly, just to give a bit of background.
At the time, they were still relatively small. They were only in the US. Now they also have chapters here in Europe, also in Germany. And we were down in that basement. It was really a dive bar, and there were like 25 people, and everyone had his watch collection. And the moment when I understood that it wasn't the most expensive watch that was the star of the night, but the coolest watch, the watch with the best story, that really was the moment when I understood that is it, right? It's no more about that classic status approach that our industry still lives in to some extent. It's about enjoying these mechanical wonderworks, right? And if they are $200 or $25,000, it doesn't matter. It matters what it means to you.
Yes. I love that story because it really highlights for me a difference that, I've been trying to illustrate, that I've been trying to tell people about, that the difference between a watch snob and a watch geek, because they both have similar levels of passion and knowledge, but a watch snob will use his knowledge to exclude people, and a watch geek will use his knowledge to include people. And I think that's what you just described there, that it was about inclusivity, it was about sharing your stories, it's about making those connections with people. And I think that's what brings people in and makes the community as strong as it is today.
And then you go back to what matters in your life, right? How do you want to spend your life? Do you want to spend your life excluding people, being in that secluded space with 3-4 other people who share 100% your values? Or do you want to be with people who have different opinions, who create joy, who make you understand and learn things at the end? I think this is the key question.
Yes, I think definitely I know which one I would choose. Now, still on the same subject, I want to say that one of the biggest considerations for any brand today and the messaging that they adopt is how to represent its values and identity in a way that's really accessible to its audience in a concise, effective way. And I believe Oris has done this in a really interesting, they've taken a really interesting path towards this. And what I'm talking about, of course, is the use of a really endearing mascot, the Oris, the famous Oris bear. So introduce us to your mascot and tell us how it helps you to bring people closer to the brand.
Yes, the Oris bear. Some of you may know him. He is our mascot. The Oris bear had been in Hülstein when I joined the company in 2006, and we had like 4 of these bears, small bears. They were just being there, and whenever I looked at them,
where did they come from? Where the bear?
There was an artist who helped us launch Artelier, which we presented in the early 2000s. And he was also involved with these bears that were a street art activity in Zurich. And then he painted 4 of these bears for us, and they were just there. And whenever you looked at them, they always smiled at you, and obviously you smiled back. And when you think about it, our industry is about transporting emotions. And I was never so sure about paying people who are paid to play roles now to pay to like your brands, right? It never quite made sense to me. And when you think about it, the best canvas for any kind of emotion is a teddy bear.
Yes.
Right? And if you have a problem with a teddy bear, you really need to see a doctor. And this Oris bear, he can be whatever, right? People see him, they like him, and it stands for this exclusive philosophy that we stand for. He makes people smile, which is why we get up every morning.
I love how you describe the origins of it, that it started off as something like cool and kind of like a street art in Zurich. So it was really organic in that sense. It wasn't something that was integrated as a corporate decision. It's something that grew very organically and, something that, as you said, made people smile. And you said, you know what? He's part of the Oris story now. I think that's amazing. Now, going back to how you personally take decisions for the brand as the leader, because we're talking to you as CEO of Oris. For sure, every style of leadership is very different. Every leader is different. Every brand is different. But are there any general principles of brand leadership that you believe can be applied in a general way to guide anyone else out there who's also searching for their success story?
I think at Oris, we are a group of people who share the same values. And I think what is important to me is not to create opinions, but to have a shared set of values. And when you have that, people will give 120% because they can be themselves and they can give the best for the brand they work for. If they have to bend or to follow certain rules or behave in a certain way, you lose so much energy, right? At the end, you want to have some core factors that are important, and you want to instill that idea of how we want to be as a brand and as a company. And when you have that, people just go.
Yes, but we're talking about setting, making sure that they share the same values, the same philosophy, the same way that they work. That can be so hard to implement and actually plan for. How do you put something like that in place? Is it like through HR, through hiring, through?
No, at the end you just live it. It's just how
it sounds simple, Rolf, but I'm sure it's not really.
I think it is. I think it is. If you really mean that. And if you let people be themselves, they will be, and they will create that kind of culture in the company. So when new people come in, they adapt to that. They know they can be who they are, and they will, each and every one of them, go the extra mile.
Can you give us an example?
Yes, well, as an independent brand, we have to work harder, work more than when you are in a group. We do everything ourselves, from finance to HR to IT. So,
many hats.
It's a lot of hats for a lot of people. And if you would see our every family has a WhatsApp chat, right? And we also at Oris, we have our global chat, and you see how people every weekend they're out there, they are at events, they present the brand, they stand in for the brand, the Oris Bear is there. And the energy that creates is just fantastic. And whenever I see that, I'm like, yes, I am so happy and privileged to be able to do what I do.
I want to say that at this point that you watch all these videos online, shared on social media, all that. They talk about hiring practices, and they do tend to say that one big red flag during the interview process is when the hiring manager says, we're like a family here. Because quite often it turns out to be like something a bit more, something with a rather shadier, something with a more sort of darker side. But it sounds like at Oris, this is actually genuinely the case. People feel close to each other. They have a shared WhatsApp group. They go out on weekends. There is a mascot. They have picnics together. And I can imagine this is perhaps the exception to the red flag rule of being a family company, like a family vibe company.
Yes, and you don't have. Often that also means you have to do everything together. You have to believe in the same things. No, if you don't want to do certain things, if you don't feel like this is for you, then you just don't do it. So it's not a pressure to be that. It's more, hey, I'm part of that, and I can live my own values within that group of people, and this way we can hold our place in that very competitive environments that we are, that is dominated by a lot of these big groups. There we are like the asterisks of the watch world, standing in for ourselves.
I think also what you were saying before about the longevity that some people have at the brand, that's also something that makes them stay. Because you come in and you realize, as you describe the company culture, that people are really willing to, dedicate their efforts to the team and each other. They will, extend themselves if someone else is, really, struggling with something, or if they need help. It's not just, this is my job, I do my work, and you do your job and you do your work, and hopefully somehow it all comes together at the end. But what you're talking about is, I think, something that we all recognize today. I don't know about me, but like all of you, but definitely for me, it's something that I look for in my team, that they're willing to go the extra mile if they see that someone else is maybe not having such an easy time, and it's really the idea of working together like that. And it ties in very, very closely with what you described about the brand overall and how you relate to the community and your values and how you represent that. So far, we've talked about really a bit of the, the value side of the storytelling, the narrative of the brand for audiences and how they perceive you. But because, Oris is a watchmaking brand, there are a lot of practical, sometimes even technical decisions that support the brand journey and its story. So let's come back to a bit of the strategic side of things. And I want to bring up Oris's strategy in making mechanical movements only and their approach in in-house manufacturing and its role in establishing the brand's position today. What can you tell us about the factors that shaped your decision-making in this area?
Yes, at Oris it was always about the product. And we have a long history of making our own movements. We have made, before the watch crisis, 279 of our own calibers. And then in 2004, we came back with a 10-day hand-winding, non-linear power reserve indication movements that we developed into many iterations, resulting in a skeleton version of it, caliber 115. And then a very big decision was to make our own automatic movements, again, caliber 400s. And when we decided that, we didn't just want to make another mechanical movement, we wanted to make a movement as we ourselves, as watch enthusiasts, would want it. Long power reserve, anti-magnetic, long warranty, so it has 5 days power reserve out of 2 barrels. It's anti-magnetic, it has 10 years warranty and service intervals. Yes, this is what we appreciate in a watch, and we've made it. It's a challenge to manage all these things as a small independent like we are, but it's certainly worth the effort. When we made that decision, it wasn't clear from the beginning that this really would make sense for us. When you talk about, or when you think about that citoyen that I mentioned, right, then a good standard Swiss movement makes a lot of sense in your watches. But still, for a product that nobody needs, right, it's also about what you can do as a company from a technical perspective. And to showcase that and to bring that automatic movement that is now at the center of what we do certainly was a big step for us and a very defining moment.
Yes. You talk about that fine line of finding that balance of being able to have that expertise to create your own in-house movements, but also stay independent and a mid-sized brand. And I feel like this is a misconception that a lot of people have about brands that talk about their own in-house expertise and in-house watchmaking, because it's not just an internal initiative. People forget that even if you do your own movements, there are still a lot of interactions with external partners and other sectors of the industry. So you have that in-house cohesion, you have that in-house strength and in-house values. Do you also use that system, that philosophy to how you work with external partners, external suppliers? Because that, to a mid-sized brand, and for any SME, that's essential, your network of partners and suppliers.
Absolutely. And also, we are open about it. When I go to our suppliers, I'm always interested to see what kind of parts they make for brands. You would think that everything is happening in-house with them, right? It's a very diverse industry, and we have these small and middle-sized companies in the Jura Mountains who have a fantastic excellence in doing exactly that.
Very specialized.
Precise thing that they do, and they do it for many brands out there, and I wouldn't know why you can't talk about that. And there we go back to what you mentioned before. What is an independent brand, right? I think nobody really is independent. As a person, you are never independent. There's always
interdependent.
Exactly, and the same it is as a watch company. So, as you said, I think there's a lot of misconception about this term of in-house and independent. We call it our own movement, and with that we mean it is our brainchild. We have developed it. We don't make the parts ourselves. The parts are made by these specialized companies in Switzerland, and then we put it together. We control it, we market it, we develop it, and that to us is our own movement.
Yes, and I think that makes so much sense. And like you said, there are so many misconceptions and misunderstandings about what the term in-house really means, and what does it actually matter? Because in-house doesn't always mean better. If I go to a high-end steakhouse, I'm not necessarily asking them if they raise their own cows. I just want to know that they get the best product and that I'm having the best product that I'm getting for my money. So what does it actually bring to the conversation, unless you're really clear, as you said, about acknowledging your partners and being open about who does what, and what comes from you, the concept, the ideas, the design, the construction. But maybe you have partners and really long time friends of the brand, suppliers that really help you to get to the qualitative product that you're able to offer in the market.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you would want things to be easy and also for the consumer to be easy, you would just use sourced movements, right? Because they are tried and tested. Spare parts are available in any place. You can have it repaired wherever you want. As soon as you have your own movement, it needs to be sent to a service center that does have these parts. It makes it all very complicated.
Yes.
And also, you said that quality is much harder to guarantee on that level. And still, I mean, we talk about something people don't need. So they want to see that you go that extra mile, that you do things that are new and different, and that it represents your philosophy as a brand. And that's why we do it. And that's where the fascination comes from that there are so many different philosophies, so many different ways to approach the topic of watchmaking, which per se is obsolete in today's world.
Exactly, because as you mentioned before, like quality aside, then maybe what we're trying to say here is, yeah, apart from the level of finish or like sort of mechanical value that it brings, what in-house really brings to the audience, to the table in terms of the discussion, is the understanding that the brand is thinking about the consumer, what they actually want, and that that if they're doing something in-house, it's really because they know that they're objectively offering you something that is not otherwise available out there, and it's for them. Not necessarily, just because it's more prestigious or, because like you can sell more watches that way, but because you really think about your community and what you're able to give your audience.
Yeah, and it's the same in the car industry, right? All these engines in the cars, normally they're used in different brands, and at least the car you really need, right? And here in watchmaking, it's also a form of art. It really is a philosophy. That's why people pay so much for something that at the end is a piece of jewelry on your wrist.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we love it a lot. I wouldn't say it's just a piece of jewelry, but it means more than that. I think, as you said, it's the meaning that you give to it. Now, we've got 15 minutes left on the clock, so I am going to say that we'll be taking audience questions if anyone is out there. But while you're thinking of things that you might want to ask to Rolf, let's continue discussing a bit more. Now, let's go into a bit of the speculative realm. I want to play a game of what if. As a leader, you make decisions every day, some major and some minor, but you don't always realize at the time how impactful those decisions can be for the big picture. Was there ever a time that you were making a decision between two different paths for the brand? And of course, tell us what that is. And how do you think Oris would be different today if you had chosen the other path?
Yeah, I think certainly in-house movement making, especially the decision to make Caliber 400, that was a big step, and we would be a different company if we wouldn't have taken that decision. I'm glad we did, but as we just discussed, it brings a lot of things with it, but also it positions yourself as one of the brands who have their own engine.
Different in what sense? Do you think your audience will be different? Do you think your price range will be different? Do you think the size of the company will be different? Do you think its perception will be different?
It's a very long journey. If you go that way, it has so many impacts. You have to have after sales. You have to have the quality on another level. Also in price, it's a different watch. So the marketing is different. So it influences what you do for the decades to come in a huge way. And I'm glad we didn't know everything at that time. But when you then work through it, you see what it all means. And but I'm very happy that we chose that direction.
In a sense, it's good that you did know the full impact of what that decision would bring when you decided to take that jump, because it could have made the decision a bit more complicated. Can we say that?
Well, you can have it easier, right? You can say, we focus more on marketing, we focus less on the product, we just use sourced movements. That's absolutely okay. You keep your price at that point that you can make a watch with a source movement with.
Yes.
If you have in-house watchmaking, naturally, it will be a little bit higher. So
yes, and that's a risky business decision as well.
Absolutely, but that's what we're here for, right? We are independent, we take these decisions, and then we go through it.
Okay, I think we just have time for just a few minutes. Let's talk about the future in Oris. I'd like a really, really short time to discuss the future of Oris. But here we are in 2025, and Oris is where it is today. What 3 words or phrases do you think or hope will describe Oris in 2035? Do you want it more or less to be the same as what you're doing now, or do you think there will still be some evolution in store?
well, our positioning will still be the same, I hope. We will still be independent, and we still will be the opposite of that classic feudalist way of making Swiss watches. We will still be making people smile. I think the industry will continue to go up market, even though personally I am not 100% a fan of that development, because it takes away the industrial base of Swiss watchmaking. And also, I think it's very important that our industry and also the Swiss watchmaking industry still offers a product for someone who starts that journey. So I hope that we will still be able to make watches at a price that someone can afford who gets into the hobby, but also we will be making special things with our movements that we have now, with the movements, the new calibers that are in development, and gap the bridge like that.
I do agree completely with what you're saying, that there is today in the current sort of marketing and communication sphere around watchmaking, there's a lot of emphasis on that romantic value of handmade, artisanal horlogerie, like fait à la main in the mountains by an old white Swiss guy with a big beard. But that kind of loses sight of the fact that the Swiss watch industry is an industry. And there's a beauty about that, in a sense, the fact that it encompasses so many different aspects of enterprise, different companies, and it creates so many beautiful stories. It creates more than just one individual's work. It's all about the connected storytelling, which again I find comes back to the values of Oris and what it means. I think we've had a very, very beautiful chat here, talking about the values and the strategies and the plans, the future plans of Oris for the future with Rolf here. If there are no more questions from the audience, I think we'd just like to thank you all for being an exceptional audience, for listening so attentively. Of course, thanks so much to Rolf and the insights and stories he was able to share with us today. I want to invite you all, if you have time today, to please stop by the Oris booth, which is just over there, and Rolf will be very happy, I'm sure. I'm speaking on your behalf, but he'll be very, very happy to welcome you all and explain more about the brand and answer any questions you may have, and personally perhaps introduce you to a few models himself. Now, I hope you all join me in thanking Rolf.
Thank you
For his time. And thank you all once again. Have a very good salon. Have a good fair.